Okay, guys, good morning. Welcome aboard. Appreciate this. Just a reminder, if you have a noisy background, just mute yourself. Try and keep yourself muted. We will hear everything. If you don't, we'll try and monitor that best that we can. But if you can turn on your cameras, turn on your cameras. I mean, it's always more interactive, whatever. Just it's good to just focus in here for an hour. We always have good content here. So just a reminder, we're doing this every Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, where I'm at here in Colorado Springs. And appreciate you guys being on. The more participation, the better. You got a question, put it in the chat. We'll get it answered. Or along the way, Katrina might open it up here for some Q&A as we go and some thinking and stuff. But I want to introduce Katrina. She started out at EXP as a brand new agent a couple years ago, and she's done phenomenal. She's really just a great agent. We see her all the time. She just is out there participating in all kinds of stuff that we're doing. But she's really built a good business, and a big part of that for her has been working with investors and doing the with like Airbnb, this kind of stuff, buying these some short-term rentals. She's got some for herself as well. But Katrina, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell everybody your story a little bit and your background, that kind of stuff, what it's been like so far.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just because I have it all on my presentation.
Yeah, go ahead. You can put it all in there. So however you want to do it.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Right.
Good.
Can you see it?
Yep.
We're good?
We got you.
All right. So I'm pretty new to real estate. I'm about 3 years in, just under 3 years. I was an educator for 10 years in Georgia, but always had this business side to me, always wanted to get into real estate, but it's pretty hard to leave a career you have your master's in. But I made the move, and I actually moved from Atlanta to Colorado Springs, which I absolutely love. And it's intimidating when you first start. I'm a very I'm a very focused person. And so when you start real estate in a new town, it's very, very hard. And so for my first 5 months, I didn't sell a thing. And that gets very stressful. And then after the first 5 months, I started doing really well, but I knew that I wanted to have some sort of income besides just my real estate checks, if that makes sense. So I really, really wanted to get into investing. And in this last year, I have 3 short-term rentals. So I'm going to kind of tell you guys a little bit about that story, how it all came about. And if you guys have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to ask. So this guy's actually on the Zoom call with us today, Gil, but I met him walking my dog downtown Colorado Springs. He was flipping a house. And sorry, Gil, this isn't the best picture of you, but you don't like to take pictures. So, and I met him, and I asked if I could take him out to coffee and if I could just pick his brain. I really needed some mentorship in real estate. And we went out to coffee. He kind of was like, I don't really need a realtor. I know what I'm doing. I've owned my own brokerage. But he took the mentorship part really seriously. And one of the things he made me do right from the start is write out my goals. And one of my goals was I wanted to become a real estate investor. And he goes, how soon? And I said, in the next year. And he goes, we'll make that happen. Right. And here I was scared. I think when you start investing, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of risk. And so he's like, I promise you, we will get you into an investment within the first year. And so I always kept my eyes, peeled for that. I had a limited budget. I had about 50,000 that I was willing to spend to get into investing. And so I'll tell you guys about our first investment. So I found this deal through cold calling. We had identified a neighborhood that we wanted to invest in. And when I cold called, if you guys see, it's a total hoarder house, disgusting. And when I called, this family was day 3, their father had passed away. And they were on, I think dumpster number 6 already of trying to clean out this house. And they were done. They thought they could clean it up, put it on the market, sell it. By day 3, I think they were done. So I just happened to cold call on the right day. And We went and saw the property immediately, put in a cash offer immediately. And this was one that Gil and another partner allowed me to partner on. So I'm a third partner in this deal. We purchased this house for $285,000. Now, I don't know what markets everyone's in, but in Colorado Springs, to find something under $300,000, pretty difficult. Like if you were to look on the MLS today, there's probably less than 10 homes, maybe 5, right? We think we overpaid a little bit for this one, maybe. It was a ton of work. It took probably, Gil, how many more dumpsters do you think it took?
5.
5, 6, after they had brought in their other ones. And so this house is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We added an additional bedroom, which for something like this, an Airbnb, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more later, the extra bedrooms add a lot of value. And so we ended up, we put in quite a substantial amount into this place, $87,000 in our rehab. And when we were done, it appraised for $415,000. So what ended up happening, if you guys are like familiar with like the Burr model, when you get a loan, so we paid cash on the front end. Once we fixed it up, we rolled it into a loan. You have to usually, if you're doing an investment property, 20 to 30% down, right? So we didn't have to come up really with a down payment for it. So this $87,000, we split 3 ways pretty much. And we were all 1/3 partners in. Now, I'm gonna break down the numbers for this one for you guys just a little bit more. Last month, we grossed in Airbnb short-term rental, $5,846.79. Now, you might see that number and be like, oh, that's great. But I'm gonna break it down and make it real so that you guys can kind of see where we're at. Now, here's the pictures of what it looked like once we were done. So quite a big improvement. All right. We put on new roof, stucco, new windows, new floors. I would say we probably remodeled it 90%. We didn't do cabinets in the kitchen and a few other things. But the whole remodel cost us $87,000. So this is our earnings statement for April 2022. So at the top, if you see, that's our gross. Okay, that's not taking away any of our expenses. We had 6 bookings for the month of April. So this is just last month. These are all our expenses that we incurred. So cleaning is a huge expense. Obviously you have your mortgage, utilities. Now, if you notice in yellow, that is our taxes for the year. So that's not something you're gonna have every single month. We just happen to pay it in the month of April. And then supplies, you always have to renew supplies. This is a big fee that's going to come that if you're looking into short-term rental or if you're working with a client with short-term rental, management fees are pretty hefty, but they're important too. So I would say on average, management fees are 20%. I know somebody here in town that does it for 10. I know somebody that does it for 18, and I know somebody does it for 22. But I would say on average, you would pay 20% management fees for short-term rentals. Now, if you look at that number, like that's $1,144, that's a lot of money, right? So should you self-manage or should you advise the client to self-manage? I think it all depends on your situation. So one of the first questions I would ask you or your client is, does your work allow you to solve problems during the day?
Hey, Katrina.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask something real quick on that previous slide?
Sure.
The $180 cleaning, is
Yeah.
that not something that we charge the tenant on the short term? Isn't that an additional charge against them?
It is an additional charge. When you get your, from Airbnb, when you get your payment, it's everything included.
So they do pay it, but you got to turn around and pay the actual cleaning. So you're collecting it in income, but you're paying for it.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. No problem.
Yeah. So this is the 5,846 would include what our guests paid for cleaning.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Good question. And cleaning, that was one thing that hit me hard when I first started. It's like, that seems like a lot of money. Like, I'm like, I feel like more people should get into Airbnb cleanings, like 3-4 hours, $180. I have a cabin too, and it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and it's $120 for cleaning. And I interviewed, and that was the cheapest that I could find. So if you want to self-manage, which I'm currently self-managing my cottage, we're not self-managing the Kearney one. But does your work allow you to solve problems during the day? Right? There's always little things that might come up, and you have to be able to problem solve those. If you want to scale, if anyone has done any sort of real estate investing at some point, right? If you want to scale, let's say your real estate business, or you want to scale your rental business, at some point, you can't do it all, right? So if you just have one, like if I had one or two, one in my backyard or something, it might be something you would want to self-manage. But if you're wanting to scale to like 10 short-term rentals, self-managing may not be the option. And then, do you need the extra income? Some people, that extra $1,000 is very important to them. I look at it personally, eventually I want all mine to be managed, because like I'm a realtor. So if I sell a house, I'm going to make a lot more money than if I manage all of my Airbnbs. And then as far as if you want to hire a company, we talked about being able to scale. Do you travel a lot? Okay, I have a friend, Alfredo. He has 3. He's actually financially free through his Airbnbs. You never know what part of the world he's in. He's in Brazil, he's in Switzerland, he's in Whistler, right? Because he travels so much, he can't self-manage. And then, do you want to be mostly hands-free? So depending on what your situation is, that $1,100 fee, that's a lot, but depending on what you're trying to accomplish, I think is the question you need to ask. And then, do your numbers make sense to hire a management company? Okay. Sometimes that 20% is not going to keep you in the green, right? So you may not have that option to hire a management company. So here's just, so this last month, we netted 728. So out of that 5,846, we netted 728. Okay, not a huge number. If we had not paid for the property taxes, we would have netted 2,100. And then again, if we wouldn't have self-managed, we would have netted 3,275. Okay, so again, you kind of have to look at what works for you, what works for your situation. All right, one of the things you want to look at, any questions on that before I head on to the next thing?
I have a quick question. The property taxes that you paid, were those an annual tax bill, or was that some kind of a lodging tax?
That's an annual tax bill.
That's what I figured, but there's several of us on this call that are in a short-term rental market. And so we actually have to pay lodging taxes here. So
yeah, we do too. Airbnb takes them out on the front end for us.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I've noticed that as well. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
this is just like your county taxes. We just happen to pay it that month. So like our net for the month would have been 2,130 if we had, hadn't done it this month. So that's good to keep, because this number seems a little bit, or seems low for April. Any other questions? All right, so algorithm. How do you have a strong Airbnb? Now, the next couple of slides, this comes straight from Airbnb. This is how they explain how their algorithm works. And then, so the first thing they talk about is quality, okay? Quality of your listing photos. Now, if you look at all my listings, none of mine have professional photos yet, because there's a few pieces of furniture and stuff that I still want to get before I completely finish them. But they're live, but Airbnb can tell the quality of your photos. They've actually called me and said, when are you going to put higher quality resolution photos? Okay, so get a professional photographer and do it right. Okay, a well photographed listing will make a big difference. They look at your reviews. To be a super host, you have to keep a certain standard up. And then your different listing characteristics. That's what they define as quality. Then popularity. Okay. This was interesting. How guests engage with your listing. So are they saving it? Are they adding it to their wish list? Are they booking it? And how much are they engaging with you as a host? So this is an interesting thing. Like, that's why you need some elements that make yours stand out, because you want your listing to be saved. You want them to message you. You want that interaction with them. And then this was interesting, pricing. Airbnb looks at how prices compare to similar listings in your area. So is your listing priced well for your area? And again, like if you've ever booked an Airbnb, you look at like first maybe 3 pages of listings and that's it, right? You don't want to be on the 10th page down for listings. So
Katrina, real quick.
Yeah.
Go back to that.
Sure.
Is there anything that you've seen personally that you've been able to do or you've seen others do which will get the guests to engage more? Like any thoughts there in terms of what you've noticed that gets that engagement up?
Well, one of the things is like quick response rate. Okay. We also have like set templates that we send. So it's like the day after they check in, we send a template or like an email template that says, hey, these are really good hikes in the area. We live in Colorado. So that's getting our messaging with the guest engagement high. And then we do fun things, and I'll show you. Well, I don't think I include in this presentation. Like one of our listings has a really nice mural on the wall that stands out, right? So like we do little things that make people want to stay at our listings. And I'll explain some of those things a little bit later on.
That's kind of cool. So like hikes, like is it like restaurants? Maybe here's, top 5 restaurants that are within, walking distance or within a mile of that place, maybe, or like local attractions, like that kind of stuff. Maybe like multiple emails going out to just get that and does that help?
Yeah. And like something new that I've actually just learned at a closing this week with one of my clients that I'm going to do at mine is I'm going to have a smart car hookup at my house. So do you think I'm going to get, how many people here in town at their Airbnbs have that, right? My electrician said it'll cost me less than $200 to put that in, right? Yeah. Okay. So I live downtown. I'm going to provide bikes for my clients. Okay. Things like that. Hot tubs are like a hot ticket item here in Colorado, right? Yeah. So things like that. So like those are the things that you want on the first like picture or 2 of your listing that will make people want to save it or engage with it. Mm-hmm. Another big one here, which I struggled with wanting to allow, but allowing dogs is huge in Colorado. Everybody has a dog. People travel with their dogs. A lot of hotels don't allow dogs, and so that's something that I've had to like compromise with, but I think it makes a big difference.
Okay. Do you charge an extra fee?
Yeah, I charge $50 extra.
Okay.
And then they have to agree to certain things. I don't allow dogs under 2. And there's like a list of things that they have to say. They have to agree that if it barks too much, that they would kennel it, because then you got to stay like at peace with your neighbors through this all too. I'm curious, is there anything else you guys do that you would say set your listings apart? Or
Aileen, do you have some Airbnb properties you're working with?
I have one that I'm doing, yes, that I'm 50% owner of, and then I have one that I hired a manager for.
Okay.
And how has your experience with your manager been?
It's probably too soon to say. I think we got our first booking at the end of April.
Okay.
And she's just using VRBO because she thinks that it's a higher end property and it won't do as well on Airbnb. But the one that I'm managing, which is like a 2-bedroom cottage across the street from the beach, I'm killing it. I am doing as well so far as well with that little cottage on Airbnb as the 4-bedroom Gulf front expensive condo that I have with her on VRBO. So
Yeah.
that's kind of both alarming and exciting all at the same time.
Yeah, and I'll show you something a little bit later on in regards to VRBO and Airbnb that you just might want to think about.
Yeah,
Hey,
definitely.
Katrina, I had a question for you.
Sure.
So the 3 properties you have, are they primarily veteran community type properties? Are they niche? Are they like at the foot of the mountains? I mean, what is there anything that draws people to continuously lease them?
Yeah, so the one that I showed you the numbers on, that one's close to Fort Carson. It's also close to the World Ice Arena. So a lot of military sports teams kind of thing. So it's in a good little pocket of town. It's close to the Broadmoor, things like that. So, and here in Colorado Springs, we have like Fort Carson, we have Shrivers, we have Peterson, so
Military, a lot of military.
and military families, a lot of them have money, like they get a pretty decent housing stipend, right? So maybe their family has to come for a month or something like that. Then my cottage is at the base of Pikes Peak. So it's a cute little setting. Yeah, so it's kind of in like a niche for tourists. We get people from Texas a lot, and yeah, most of the people that come there are tourists. And then my third property is downtown, which is a hot place to live. It's 2 blocks from Colorado College, which is a really good little university here in town. Yeah, so they're all in good areas, like as far as like location. They all serve kind of a purpose. Yeah, that's a great question. And we'll talk about how to know where to go as well, because that's super important, especially if as a realtor, if I'm trying to help clients find good ones. Like if you help a client find an Airbnb and then they don't do well, they're not going to ever want to use you again, right? And I build my business on referrals, so that's super important that I know what I'm doing with that. So how do you scale this? So like I kind of shared a little bit of my story is how I use it for some passive income, but how do you scale this to use it for your business? You've got to know where you live and you've got to know the rules. You have to become the local expert. And I wouldn't say like that I'm an expert. Like when Jeff asked me to do this, I'm like, oh, I don't know, but like Gil tells me, I know a lot more than probably 80 to 90% of the realtors here in town, because I deal with this on a very consistent basis. So if you guys are thinking about getting into this niche, you have to think about how do you become the local expert. So one of the things, like as you think about becoming the local expert, it takes some time, it takes some work, but if you can add value, you become the brand. Find a way to add value to people, right? And then if it doesn't add value, it wastes, right? So think about as you look into like, hey, I want to make this a niche of my real estate business. The more you know, the better you educate yourself, you're going to add value to your clients. So you've got to know the laws and rules. Like Denver has very, very strict Airbnb laws. There's pockets in Denver that you can still invest in, but they've shut down a lot of the Airbnb industry up there if you're not already grandfathered in, right? In Colorado Springs, it's getting stricter. It's actually pretty hard within city limits to find properties, but we still find them. So I'm not saying you can't. You go to our Colorado Springs Gov site, and they have a whole section on short-term rentals, right? And they have a whole frequently asked questions. So like, I think an agent that wanted to like become an expert, learn like most of these questions will answer most of your clients' questions, right? But most agents won't take the time, right, to look through all of these, right? So how do you become an expert? Like they obviously post these questions because a lot of people are asking them. right? So learn your county, your local municipalities rules. I will just kind of just share for you a little bit here in Colorado Springs. If you're owner occupied, so that means you live 185 days a year in your home, you're pretty guaranteed that you can Airbnb your house, right? But if you're non-owner occupied, it's a lot harder to be able to find a property within city limits that you can Airbnb. There's zoning restrictions, so it can only be zoned certain things, and it can't be within 500 feet from all points of your property of another non-owner occupied Airbnb. A lot of people don't know that, right? And so by you being able to tell your clients this, right, it's already showing that you know what's going on, right? So any questions on that?
I think it just highlights the importance, I mean, for people to learn locally what's going on. It's going to be different everywhere you go.
Yeah,
I'm sure, but I know this. There's a lot of cities all across the country are coming out with laws and on the whole Airbnb thing.
Yeah, and if you asked me about Denver, I couldn't tell you because I haven't taken the time to learn it. But because I deal with a lot of different Airbnb people, I've taken the time to learn it well.
And one of the things you shared, Katrina, with me, a couple of days ago, we were talking. The fact that you have learned this stuff, it's like you've got agents now reaching out to you. Hey, I've got a client, they're interested in Airbnb, whatever. I know that you've done a lot of these here. Can I give you a referral for this client? Because I don't know what I'm doing.
An agent from another company was like, I'm clueless. You need to take this client. I was like, sure. And he's an out-of-state investor that has about $1 million that he wants to spend here, So
that's awesome.
Because I've taken the time to learn it, right? Like there's even agents within our company that are calling me, Kat, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing. And that's fine. Like I'll help them. So become the local expert on these things. Here's a example. This is my neighborhood. I actually live right here on the blue dot. So if you notice, I can owner occupy it, but I can't I cannot do non-owner occupied because there's literally an Airbnb in my backyard. So all these little yellow circles are Airbnbs. So the law passed like 2 or 3 years ago, where they became a lot more strict. So a lot of these got grandfathered in. But here again, a lot of people don't know how to look for this map, right? And so, just knowing how to work it and how to do it. I'll give you an example. So this was a property I sold in February this year. It was 2 homes on one property, and a realtor came to my open house and she's like, I'm going to buy this to Airbnb this. And I was like, oh, are you planning to live in it? And she's like, oh, no. And I said, well, you wouldn't qualify for it. And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, there's Airbnbs within 500 feet of here. So unless you're owner occupied. And she had no clue. And so she came and we sat and I explained to her a lot of the Airbnb rules, and here she is in the industry, right? But a lot of people just don't know. So if you can take the time to educate people on it, I think it can just go a long ways. And actually a military, I wasn't the buyer's agent, I was a listing agent on this one. A military family ended up moving into the front house, and they are Airbnb in the back house, and it's doing fantastic. So as an owner occupied Airbnb. So another big piece of advice, if you don't know, don't act like you know, research and follow up with your clients. Okay. As a new agent, I don't know if there's any new agents on here. You're pretty clueless when you start real estate, right? But if I can give any piece of advice, or even with Airbnbs, is if your client asks you a question, write it down and follow up. But don't sit there and pretend like you know what you're talking about if you don't. It can get you in a lot of trouble. Another piece of advice is, even though I probably would say I know a lot about the Airbnb stuff here in town, with any Airbnb investor I work with, I always tell them on the front end that they have to do their due diligence. I'm going to kind of give them an overview, but they're going to have to still contact the city and make sure, at the end of the day, it's their responsibility to know, because you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you sell a house and then it's not Airbnb-able and something like that, right? So at the end of the day, you have to say you still have to do your footwork to make sure. Another big thing is to show your clients the data. Again, you don't want to help your clients make bad or poor decisions, right? Based on how you feel or what you think, right? So there's this really cool site called AirDNA. Does anyone on here, has anyone seen this before, AirDNA? Cool. Well, if you're looking at investing in real estate personally, or if you're looking at helping a client invest, AirDNA is like the data for Airbnbs. Okay, it's real data. And so I'm going to just kind of give you guys a little overview. So AirDNA does have a cost. What you're seeing right now is the free part. But so I put in Colorado Springs. And so you're not going to get all the data if you don't subscribe and pay for their services. So if a client is like seriously interested in purchasing a home, I always highly, highly, highly recommend that they subscribe for a month to check out the data for the particular house they're looking for. So here in Colorado Springs, the average daily rate is $175 at 80% occupancy. Okay. And here in the Springs, there's about 2,282 active rentals as of yesterday. So all the little purple dots are obviously Airbnbs. So what does that data tell you? I'm gonna move one forward. Okay. If you take 175 and you multiply it by 365, and then you multiply it by 0.8, 80% occupancy, on average, Airbnbs are making about $51,000 here in town. Okay. That's based on data. So this is not like a number you're just throwing out there. This is what is going on in Colorado Springs. So that's good data to be able to communicate with your client. Now, what you can do, I'm just going to go back to the last slide. AirDNA is $23.99 per zip code. So if a client is seriously looking at a house, like I had one looking at some properties in Monument, right? I didn't know for sure how well Airbnbs do in Monument. So I said, hey, you need to subscribe for 1 month, check out Monument. Basically, it's like a 10-minute thing once they subscribe to look up what they need to look at. But our Airbnb, like, what is the occupancy rate in Monument? What is the daily rate? Do these numbers make sense, right? Monument, that wasn't Monument, sorry, it was Woodland Park, is like an A rating for Airbnbs. They also rate it for you if you pay the subscription fee. So like, we knew right away that this would be a good investment for him, right? So if you're considering purchasing or a home as an Airbnb, like, you can put the zip code, you can like hone in on the neighborhood. You can see what the Airbnbs in that, like on your street, how well they're doing. It'll tell you all the data. So if you're seriously considering, or you have a client, like, the $24 is worth the investment, and you only need it for a month. And then they have like a promo if you do it per city, $60. All right, so I live in the zip code here in Colorado Springs, 80903. Okay. And if you see just in my zip code, downtown Colorado Springs, there's 290 active Airbnbs. That's a lot, right? To compete with, right? Now, if you guys look at the data here, this is again free. I didn't pay for anything. I'm Dutch, so I don't like to pay for anything. I don't have to. 63% of those listings are on Airbnb. 6% are on VRBO. So do you guys see why you may not want to just be on VRBO, right? That's not hitting a lot. And then 31% are listed on both. So we're talking about 37% VRBO versus 63 Airbnb. So if people ask me what platform, first and foremost, I would say Airbnb. For my cottage, I'm on Airbnb and VRBO. and it's booked pretty solid throughout the summer. And you can sync the calendar, so it's not a lot of extra work. It probably takes 5 minutes to sync them. So if somebody books on Airbnb, it shows booked on VRBO. Does that make sense? So it's not a hard thing to have it onto. It doesn't take a lot of extra management. Airbnb site is a lot easier to use. VRBOs can be frustrating. It's just, I would say, antiquated compared
Clunky.
to, yeah.
How much does it cost each one of these? Like Airbnb, what's it cost to list a property?
I should know this.
That's okay.
I'll get back to you guys on that.
That's all right.
It's
curious.
a percent.
Okay.
And then VRBO can be a percent or a set fee for the year.
Okay.
I think that I'm doing percent, or I am doing percent for both for my cottage. Now I may try, somebody said that I should just do Airbnb because it messes up your algorithm. So I may try with my downtown listing, which is going live in like this week, to just do Airbnb. That way, like the booking percent for Airbnb is very high. Does that make sense? So, but if it doesn't book well, then I'm going to do both. All right. So this is, again, free data that AirDNA provides. And then amenities. And I think this is interesting to see, what are people in your zip code offering? Okay. So air conditioning. All right. I'm not there yet because I don't feel like you need it, but one of my friends who runs a successful Airbnb in town says, Kat, if you're paying $300 a night for a place, you better have air conditioning. Right? Heating, it's concerning that if you don't have heating, I don't know if that concerns anyone else here in Colorado to not have heating.
Jeez, 12 inches of snow over the weekend.
Washer, dryer. And then I want you guys to see the bottom item, hot tub. Look at less than 10% have a hot tub. So do you think you will differentiate yourself if you have a hot tub? Right? How do you compete? Like if there's 292 listings, right? 10% is like 29, right? Do you want to be the one of the 29 that have a hot tub? Is that going to get you to the top of the searches? Probably. So, and then, oh, this is an interesting thing. And one of our partners is like, this is a huge thing for him. If you see like the market's saturated with 1 and 2 bedrooms, right? So if you were looking at investing, just looking at this little chart right here, what should you be investing in? Anybody?
3.
3, 4. Look at how few 5-bedroom homes there are on the Airbnb market.
Yeah.
Right. And so my one client, this is his thing. He wants a 5-bedroom or more house, right? Because this is a part that hasn't been exposed well. So in my head, but because I'm not, I'm like 5 bedrooms is a lot to clean if you have to do a last minute cleaning, if your cleaners don't show up or something like that. So anybody have questions on this? Just a super valuable site. And if you want to stalk your neighbors' Airbnbs, it's a great site for that too. If you want to know all their data.
Katrina, this is Kelly. I do have a question.
Kelly?
In terms of demand, where do you find, or how can you tell the demand for a 2, 3, 4, 5-bedroom home? Is there much demand for a 5-bedroom home?
What I would do with that is I would look at the occupancy rates of the 5 bedrooms. I think if you have the paid version, you can. And it will tell you what percent, so occupancy out of 365 days, how many days those are booked.
Perfect. Okay.
So if you have the paid version, I think you'll get that stat.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
It's a great site.
Yeah, it is a really good. And again, as an agent, you don't want just opinions, you want data, right? And so this gives you hard data. And then another key piece of advice to become a local expert, you also want to get to know the top management companies in town, because you're going to have to refer your clients to them eventually, especially if they're going to scale. So, 20% could be a hefty fee, but if at 20%, they're getting 90 some percent booking rate versus, you're paying somebody 10% and they're getting 50% booking rate. Like all of that is data. What is the rate that they're getting on average per night? Those are all questions. So I know some people tend to go, oh, 10% is cheap, I'm gonna go with them, but you could make a lot more money going with the 20%. Right. And then also how they manage it. Like we were under contract, it fell through because there was a bunch of foundation issues on a duplex. And I went to go see it with my client, and it was an Airbnb. They were getting super low rates. And I'm like, how are they only getting like $60 a night, in Colorado Springs? But we walked in, it was filthy, it was dated, right? Like, I'm like, I would have fired that management company in a heartbeat, right? It was like, you walked in and you felt gross, right? You don't want to like cleanliness. We'll talk about that in just a bit, but cleanliness is a big deal. And then being able to provide value. So being able to provide resources that people can use. And I'll kind of go over a few of those. So an amenities checklist. I have this massive checklist of things that are amenities that if you include in your Airbnb, you can check off as an amenity on the Airbnb website, right? Like silly things like right now I have like a hide share, a pack and play, right? Like imagine if you can provide all of the things that a parent needs to travel that they won't have to bring with them, right? It cost me a couple $100 to get all those things, right? But what if you're getting that listing booked because they decided they needed a pack and play and you don't provide that in your Airbnb? So it's an overwhelming list. And if any of you guys want it, you can email me.
Maybe you could email it to me, Katrina. I could upload it into the Freedom Team group.
Yeah, sure.
So everybody has access to it. Okay.
Sure. But I don't know if Elisa's on this card. I invited her. She's setting up her Airbnb right now. And I literally went to her house and we went through the amenities checklist, right? And so those are things that can add value to your clients, because a lot of times you just don't think, like there's so many things on that list that I would not have thought of, purchasing. And I wish I had it in front of me because I'd love to read some of the things, but it's important. A cleaning checklist. Okay. Super helpful if you're interviewing cleaners, if you decide to self-manage yourself. And then one of the things I'm starting to do, I haven't finished it, but because I post a lot about Airbnbs and people asking me all the time, they're like, Kat, where do you get your sheets? What do you use for this? What do you use for that? Right? Because we've done a few now, and I've obviously learned this from all the different people that I've worked with, like Gil and Teresa and my friend Alfredo, like they've taught me good items to purchase. And so now when a client is setting up their Airbnb, I can be like, here's the stuff you need to buy, right? Amazon.com. Here are sheets that we know work well. Here are towels that are quick dry, cheap, because they're going to get stained. And so that has been super helpful as like a quick reference guide. I need to work on it a little before I send it out. But again, these are things that will add value to your clients. All right. So then if I think of my top 3 things that I would suggest, cleanliness is like, have you ever stayed at a place that's not clean? It's like the worst thing, right? Airbnb guests rate you on cleanliness. So cleanliness is like, you need to make sure that that's top of mind when you set up your Airbnb. If you're thinking about doing an Airbnb or want to suggest this to clients, I would say a lot of people are using turnover B&B. Okay. It's like a place where you can book cleaners. You set your rate, you tell them the time, and it's pretty highly used here in town. I personally don't use it yet because for my cottage, I found somebody from my church that really wanted to do it and they've done a great job. And then for my house, I have a number of people that have already wanted to clean for me. So, but if you were going to use a site like Turnover Airbnb, which a lot of people do, you can like over time develop relationships with cleaners. But anytime you have a new cleaner come in, have a checklist and set your expectations high. Okay. Be very detailed as far as your expectations for them. Teresa, the girl I've learned a lot from, she follows any new cleaner for the first 3 times and make sure they understand exactly how she wants it cleaned. And she said that just helps, because then you're not constantly remediating if you can teach them well on the front end. So I was out of town when I first started with my cleaners, in and out quite a bit. And so whenever I would go back to the cottage and I saw a few things that I didn't like, I just said, hey, like, make sure that the water's filled up in the Keurig. You know, I want there to be filtered water in the Keurig for when guests come, or things like that, just little things. But you want to address them on the front end so that you know that when your guests come, everything's well taken care of. And then I haven't done this yet, but I have full intentions of doing this, is I want to photograph my entire Airbnb and exactly how I want every room set up. It's funny when I go to the cottage, like pillows are all in different rooms, lamps have been moved around, which guests are doing, but a new cleaner may not know that hey, that piece of furniture doesn't belong in this room, or like how I want my dishes, you know, to look on my open shelving, or how the shampoo bottle should look in the bathroom, right? So I'm going to just have a binder where it's like they can just flip through to see exactly how every room should look. I've been really busy and I need to get that done, but luckily I have good cleaners. And then I'm going to tell you a true story. My cleaning rate at my cottage went down because I had mice for one client, and I was in Cancun, and I was like, well, there's not a lot I can do, right? And nobody wants mice. So the guests wanted to check out immediately. This was literally probably a week into my cottage being open. And I was just like devastated. Okay. But I want to be real with you guys. These are things that happen. And so the guest was like, we want to leave. And I said, hey, I sent them a message and I said, hey, I'm just getting this Airbnb off the ground. I said, I hate that this happened for you. I will refund your money. But I said, can you please be very gracious in your review, as bad reviews will significantly affect my business. And they were very generous with their review, right? But those are things like good communication, right? And, you know, mice are going to happen. And yes, I've taken some extreme measures to get rid of them, right? But it's real. These are things that happen. Yeah. Any questions on cleaning?
Some great ideas. I mean, the binder, you know, with the pictures and stuff. I mean,
yeah,
things that I'm like, you know, because I haven't done one yet. It's something we've talked about doing, my wife and I, you know, but it's just like these little things that I can see where it just makes a big difference, you know?
yeah. And then
it's, you get more and more and more, you know? I don't want to deal with it. That's my thing. So to have it done once, and then you can step back and just know that it's being taken care of, you know?
Yeah.
And
like the cleaning checklist, I could probably send you guys too, but obviously you would have to refine that for whatever place you're in. And then the next thing is amenities. What sets your Airbnb apart from others? And we kind of touched on this a little bit before. Here in Colorado Springs, hot tubs is a big deal, probably because of our weather, probably because people hike a lot. They need somewhere to relax at the end of the day. So I read a stat and it said, like, if you have a hot tub, you'll probably earn about at least $5,000 more per year on your Airbnb. So in 1 year, you'd pay that off. I'm going to be implementing bikes. I'm trying to find cheap, fun looking cruisers for my downtown Airbnb. That way, if they get stolen, I'm not like stressed about it. But I think, who else is providing bikes downtown? Probably not too many people, right? This is my friend Alfredo. This is the guy that travels the world. This is one of his Airbnbs here in town. He had an artist paint these wings on one of his garage walls, right? Cool. How many Airbnbs have that, right? Probably cost him a couple $100s to have that done. Do you think there's going to be people that are going to want to book it because they see that? Yeah, right. And then, yeah, I won't go too far. I told you guys about the smart car hookup, right? What if you can be one of the few in your, in my community, 292 listings, there's probably 2 that have this feature, right? Well, that set me apart. A huge one is internet speed. So many people work from home. One of my clients that I sold a house to that she's converted into an Airbnb, basically a company sent 3 workers and they all just worked from her house, right? Do you need to have good internet for that? Are you going to have unsatisfied customers if you don't have? So high speed is huge, huge, huge. And then I put this, like, how do you personalize it, right? So can you add their names to this letterboard and be like, hey, Jeff, welcome to Colorado, right? Do they think you went that extra step? Heck yeah, right? How long does it take to put Jeff in this letterboard? Not long. Now, if you forget to put Jeff and it's a Sally, you're in trouble. But, but these are all things like, what are the little things that you are doing to differentiate yourself from other ones? Fire pits are a big thing in Colorado here. I'm trying to think what else. Anybody have anything else that they do at theirs, or ideas that they've seen, or things you've liked while you've traveled? Nope.
Some good ideas though.
Yeah, just to think, because you're competing against a lot of people. Yeah. How do you get your Airbnb to show up at the top search every single time?
Hey, Katrina, can I ask something?
Sure.
So I work with investors, quite a few of them. We do flips, we do rentals, we do different things. I have not done much in the VRBO market.
Okay.
Do you have kind of a rule of thumb as far as rent versus VRBO? Why would you do VRBO? It's a whole lot more hands-on, but is it more profitable? What is it that would be maybe a good way to explain to an investor that would be considering maybe rent versus VRBO? What would you say?
I mean, I would say that the biggest is profit margins are significantly higher. I would say on a rental, and you guys, I'm not as big in the rental market, but on average, people make what, $300 gross, or sorry, net on a rental, would you guys say?
Yeah, it's a lot more hands off, but the return is going to be smaller for sure.
Yeah. And so the returns for Airbnb are significantly higher. But again, probably a lot more headaches and a lot more management.
So I could probably ask questions all day. Let me ask another one. This is more fascinating to me. So I have rental properties, and I do a lot of my own investing, but I've had a lot of interest in VRBO. So why would it not make sense for, let's say I want a house on a beach, right? And I go find it, I look at your stats, I cover the basics, and then invest in that and have a place that's already furnished, ready for my family to come and use. And then it rents out the rest of the year. I mean, is that like a normal way of thinking?
Yeah. And again, it all comes down to numbers, like, because our family goes to the west coast of Florida every winter, and we stay on the beach, right? And of course, I'm like looking at those numbers to see if someday we could just purchase one. But again, it's a numbers game because a lot of those condos have such high HOA fees, right? And so does it make sense to invest there?
So you find that the margin is way smaller there than Colorado Springs?
I can't speak to that. I would have to look into it deeper, I think.
That's been your barrier. Plus the cost to buy it, right? It's really high.
Yeah, and just unforeseen things. Yeah, I would say I'm a pretty new investor, so.
You don't get a whole lot of hurricanes in Colorado Springs?
No, but we have, fires and all sorts of high winds and all sorts of other things. And I don't think that Colorado Springs like is necessarily like the cheapest market to get into either. You could probably make a lot of higher returns other places. But from a management side, or like I live here, so it makes sense for me to invest here. But I also wouldn't want all my eggs in one basket. So I wouldn't want to invest in the same neighborhoods. Yeah, Florida would make sense maybe later down the road for me. But I would look at, if you were considering Florida, I would look at AirDNA. And then I would look at the costs, like, so look at their occupancy rate, an average night, and then see if the numbers make sense as far as like profit margins on that.
Do you have a typical percent of ARV that you buy on, or you just do cash flow?
I look at cash flow mostly at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's a joy fee? Someone asked that.
Pardon?
What is a joy fee? Someone asked that in the chat.
Joy fee. I don't know.
Yeah, you said something like that. I know what you were referring to. I heard you say something.
Do you know what slide it was on?
No, I think it was when you were going through costs and stuff. Maybe you're talking in Florida or.
Oh, so maybe HOA fee.
Well, yeah. Maybe.
So like there are like some HOAs on the beach are like $1,000 to $1,500 a month, right?
Yeah,
So
but
you
you
have to
get
pay
the benefit of all the amenities, right? But it's very, very expensive on your monthly.
Yeah. Yeah. So like you pay your HOA, you pay your mortgage and insurance and taxes. Is there a margin then? I don't know. And the prices are so high right now.
Right.
It could be tough. My friend Alfredo that has Airbnbs here in town, he doesn't stay at them because he makes more money renting them out, and he can go stay at the Hampton for $100 a night and get $230 a night for his Airbnb.
Yeah,
right.
funny.
So he actually doesn't even use his places because he makes money by not staying in them. So
I like that idea, Sean, about, buy a house somewhere where, just take the family, go for a month, and then, the 11 months out of the year, you're renting it out. I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've looked at even partnering with, people that I've been in business together, why not split it, we each get 2 weeks a year to use it, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds, but yes, there is the opportunity cost that it costs me less to stay in a bed and breakfast or a hotel that provides breakfast than stay in my own house.
yeah.
Yeah.
I get you.
Is there much of this going on outside of the U.S., Katrina? I mean, like I don't know. I mean, I think of like Mexico and, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, like places where people go, like, typical like vacation kind of spots like Cabo, Cancun, Puerto Vallarta. I mean, it's not something I even thought about, but is that, I guess it's happening down there. Yeah.
It does. And AirDNA has international stats. So if you're like, let's say you like Tulum, right?
Yeah.
You could look up the information for Tulum, which I think is fascinating, because then I think with AirDNA, you get real data, right? It's not, I don't know. Right. I like that. I'm a numbers person. So
how many investors do you have that you're working with, or that you have worked with doing these properties?
Probably around, 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah,
some have done multiple. Some have done multiple properties with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's awesome. And so if you just
become, like Gil buys quite a few properties, but they don't all qualify for short. Like if they qualify for non-owner occupied, and Gil, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but he would always turn it into an Airbnb, and then if not, he flips it. Yeah,
that's true. You could always turn around and sell it if it's not doing what you need it to do.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then my last one is location. I think somebody asked this at the beginning of the talk, right? Is location important? I think it's huge. Okay. So like my cottage is at the base of Pikes Peak. And if you've never been up Pikes Peak, every tourist that comes to Colorado is probably going to go drive up 14,000 feet to Pikes Peak. Right. Mm-hmm. So is it good to have an Airbnb at the base of that? Yeah, I think so. Our family likes to go to the beach, and we like to get a place right on the beach so that everybody can come and go. Our family's growing, can come and go as they need to, right? So beachfront property is important for us, and it's nice, right? And so think about that. Again, trying to get all of y'all on this call to come to Colorado Springs and stay at our Airbnbs, but Garden of the Gods, this is our backyard. It's 6 mile bike ride from my house. And I'm training for Ragbri right now, which is where you bike across Iowa. And so I'm seeing all of Colorado Springs right now. And then we have a strong military presence. So like close to the Air Force Academy, close to Fort Carson, things like that. So like think about where people would want to stay.
I can see like college towns, like getting, if you're in a big college town or have access to that, like, again, like sports seasons, football season. I mean, they're probably rented, every week of, the season. I mean, different things, but.
And then another thing, which I can't think of the name of the company off the top of my head, but I subscribe to a pricing app, and I think it's like $10 a month or $20, but basically it takes all the data from VRBO and Airbnb, and based on demand, it prices your property. So like my prices change every single day. Like there's a weekend in September where my cottage is like $350 a night, my 2-bedroom. So I looked it up, and it's because in Colorado Springs, there's the hill climb, right? And so like big weekends, like Air Force graduation and Colorado College graduation and all the big events, it's already tracking that to make sure that I get the best price. So,
So it adjusts the price automatically for you?
It adjusts it every single day.
Oh, wow. What's the name of that? What's the name of that service?
I'm going to have to get back to you. I could look.
Oh, man, you got to give us that one.
I will give you guys that one. I'm sorry that I didn't.
That's okay.
That. But at first I was like gimmicking with it and like looking up all the stuff. And then you just realize your time is valuable. I don't have time to like do stuff like that. And it does. I mean, there's nights sometimes I look and I'm like, oh, wow, so it takes the data and it runs it for you.
Nice.
Sorry, guys, I don't have it.
That's
get
good.
it, guys. And then these are ways to scale your business. So there was a Bigger Pockets meetup here in Colorado Springs. And I got a client from that. I went to support a friend, had no intentions of looking for clients or getting clients, started talking to some people, and I invited one guy to come see the Airbnb that we were working on, the one that I showed you guys at the beginning. And he was just so impressed with how much I knew. And he's like, hey, I want to work with you. Right. But just from a conversation, like Jeff mentioned earlier, I've had realtors reach out. Hey, I just don't know this market. Can you help my clients? And then current clients. Okay. How do you help your current clients? Always add value. It will breed loyalty. Right. And so I do my real estate business based on referral. I love on the people that I work with. And also I love on Gil and buy him lots of tequila, and he refers the heck out of me to everybody here in town. Right, Gil? Is he on here? Did he fall asleep? But, here when I met Gil, he didn't need a realtor. And over time, we've developed this relationship, and now I work with him on all his deals, right? And then social media. I'm constantly posting stuff about short-term rentals. Like, I don't know if Brian's on this call, but like I helped him set up he needed help decorating his. So I helped him decorate. My friend Elise, she's needed help setting hers up, right? Of course, I'm posting all of that stuff, right? I'm letting people know that this is a market that I'm actively involved in. And then they end up reaching out to you for it, right? Because you're adding value. I have a cousin who she's like a second cousin who I don't know super well. She's in Washington State, but she just bought an Airbnb in Arizona. And she's been calling me on or messaging me for suggestions and this and that, right? Because I've been posting about it. So now I'm the go-to person for a lot of people. All right, guys, that's what I have for you guys today. Any questions?
That's awesome. Great job, Katrina.
Thanks.
Seriously. Stop sharing your screen here a minute, just so the ones that, some people had to leave for appointments and stuff. I saw different things here, but if you want to stop sharing your screen there, we're going to all see each other. So anyway, guys, thanks for sticking around. Any comments or questions, thoughts, anything here? We will wrap it up here pretty quick. Kelly, you have your mic.
Awesome information, Katrina. Thank you so much
You're
for putting
welcome,
it
Kelly.
together and sharing it.
It's good to see you.
Well, it's really good stuff. And I think, again, just another tool people can put in the toolbox. If you just, just take, take a little bit of time and learn it. You are doing great at the social media stuff. I mean, honestly, because when I first called you about this, that's where I thought that's how I knew, because I see you posting on there like multiple times a week, like this kind of stuff, with the Airbnb stuff and investors you're working with and that kind of stuff. So it's becoming very much out there that Katrina is the person that I need to go to. So I can see how you're going to pick up more and more business with it for sure.
And I'm passionate about it too. Like I'm excited to be investing. So therefore that's kind of a realm of my business that I do want to expand. Right. Yeah.
The return is, I could see it, it's a little more headache involved possibly, but if you have a good management company and a good cleaning service and stuff where I don't have to be walking in there every day to, do all this kind of stuff. Like if that's set up and you pay for that, I could see where the long-term return on that is so solid, in terms of, just compared to a rental property.
Yeah. And I can give you an example. Let me find it on my phone. So my friend Alfredo, he has a duplex that he did real nice, but it's in the hillside area. So an okay part of town, but close to downtown, but like his little neighborhood is decent,
Right.
But he renovated the inside and had a designer come in and it looks really nice. So on a little duplex, so the top floor is a 2-1, the bottom's a 1-1. He's the one that had the wings in the presentation. I said, give me your hard numbers. He was in town last week and his top unit grossed 99,000 last year. His bottom unit, the 1-bedroom, grossed 65. So here we're talking about like 165,000 for one place, a duplex, right? And then I said, okay, so that's your gross. What are you netting? And he said, I'm netting about 50%. So he said 20% management, he counts, 10% cleaning fees, 10% for his mortgage. And then he said the other 10% is like incidentals, like if they have to repair something or replace a couch or whatever. So 165,000, half of that's a pretty nice little income on one property. This is why he can travel the world, right? And that's real data. Like now he did do a good job setting it up. So it is very, very nice.
That's a great return though.
So, awesome. Yeah, if you think of what you could make on a rental versus that, and then he doesn't touch it. He has no clue what's going on. Like, he has a management company. Like sometimes I'm like, you're too clueless, but yeah, he's doing very well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, good deal. Well, I appreciate it, Katrina. Thank you very much. Any last comments, questions before we go? We're running a little long, but that's good. That's okay. No time limit here. So guys, appreciate you being on. Okay. And again, thank you, Katrina. Really good stuff.
Thanks for
guys, we'll be back next week. Okay. And yeah, we'll post this. The recording will be up and posted there in the workplace group in just a little bit. We'll have the breakdown on that. And Katrina, if any documents you want to send to me, that'd be great. I'll just attach them to that as well so people can get access to those. That'd be awesome. So
sounds good.
Cool.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Have a good week.